So a couple weeks ago, it was July 1st, and, we had a bunch of Americans ready to pay rent, ready to go as normal, and couldn't do it. Why? Well, so we've got a lot of people out of work now. The pandemic has caused just a horrible ripple effect, a freak show to go on. We've got 45 million people trying to get on unemployment. And there's a real problem here, right? So the state's unemployment lines, the unemployment programs, they're all getting just crippled because so many people got thrown out of work. And yet they have to apply for unemployment. Well, some of them were furloughed, but most of them were actually laid off. You had small businesses that closed because obviously they couldn't afford to pay their people, their employees, because nobody was going out and buying anything. Industries were shutting down. That's what was happening. So 45 million people lost their jobs. We got at least 20 more million people on, losing their health care, their employee-based health care. So for any Democrat or Republican who's like, oh, yes, employee-based health care is the best thing in the world. Oops, how about now, huh? How about now? Right? And there's another huge issue. 1/3 of Americans could not and did not pay their rent. Let me just give you some numbers here. So got this from another progressive show, and I think you're gonna like it. So 19% of Americans paid partial rent. %13 of the American people did not pay any rent. So those who paid partial rent, they had to pay it. They had to pay partial because it was too damn high. We're in the middle of a pandemic, and they're expected to pay their rent. It was too damn high, and it was too damn high before the pandemic. We got a major housing crisis in this country. So, rent's too high, and the Congress and the president decided to give a means-tested, selective stimulus check to a portion of the American people. A $1,200 check. One $1,200 check that was released in mid-April, and a lot of people didn't receive their stimulus checks till May or June. So they couldn't pay their rent in May, they couldn't pay their rent in June, and now we can predict what happened in July. July 1st comes up, and 1/3 of the American people cannot pay the rent. Now, the Congress could have acted and could have given us more money, but no. No, what did they do? They gave us $1,200 checks, and not all of us. But then they gave Wall Street and the billionaires $4.25 trillion. They gave Steve Mnuchin, Donald Trump, and Wall Street $4.25 trillion. It gets worse. Well, 1/3 of the American people can't pay their rent. Billionaires made a total of $637 billion. $637 billion. So you get a $1,200 check if you're not a disabled adult, if you're not claimed on anybody's taxes, if you're not 17 or over, if you have a social security number. Oh, but we can't help the immigrants because they're immigrants. Yeah, well, the cruise industry got bailed out and their boats aren't registered with the United States and they avoid paying U.S. taxes. Not only that, so they get $4.25 trillion to the rich. The rich then get $637 billion altogether. And then Trump's friends, Trump's family members, Trump's lawyers, Trump's administration officials, congressional family members, family members of Congress like Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Mitch McConnell, David Nunes, Steny Hoyer, Kevin McCarthy, Dianne Feinstein, all these people, their families are pulling out PPP loans that were meant for small businesses so they could pay their employees, so they could maintain their households, so they could do whatever they needed to as a small business. They gave them less than half the money they gave to Wall Street billionaires, to corporate America, and said, oops, oh no, the business money ran out, oops. Yeah, because all of them got that money. All of them got that money. And because the stock market is doing so well, they're not going to help us. They're not going to give more money. And see, the stock market doesn't matter to the average American person. Some of you might have retirement plans, or some of your parents, they might have retirement plans that put a little bit of money in the stock market every single day or month. But, the average teacher, the average grocery worker, the average Uber driver, the average Uber Eats driver, the average Lyft driver, your mail carrier, your UPS driver, they're not owning tens of thousands or tens of millions of dollars in stock. So when they hear, oh, the stock market's doing well, that doesn't matter. They don't care about that. I know my mom doesn't care about that. My dad does because he's a Republican and he thinks, well, the stock market's doing well. The stocks are up, so obviously the economy's well. No, the economy's not doing well. You got people who still have co-payments and premiums and out-of-pocket expenses, car payments, auto insurance, groceries, student loan debt, power, gas, rent, all of that to pay, mortgages. But right now, all we have is like Elizabeth Warren calling for a national moratorium on rent and mortgages. We should have done that a long time ago. But all they care about is the freaking stock market. Are the rich happy? Great. I don't care if the rest of you are hurt. And by the way, Larry Kudlow, former Fox News economic conspiracy contributor, and now the national, Trump's, national, economic advisor, and Stephen Moore, outside economic advisor, are telling Trump, hey, don't give them another check. Because, oh, dear Lord, Jesus Christ, oh, God, Mr. Trump, the deficit. Oh, can you imagine the cost, Mr. President? Oh, come on, Mr. President, the deficit. Who gives a crap? The average American doesn't care about the deficit. They don't care. 99.99%, a bunch of us progressive hosts are asked what the deficit is. I'm always asked, hey, Jason, what's the deficit? What's the difference between the deficit and the debt? How does it affect me? By the way, the average American doesn't care about that. If you're a grocery store worker and you're a single mom and you got to feed 2 kids or 3 kids at home, you think they're worried about the stock market? You think they're worried about the deficit? No, they're worried about their debts. How am I going to put food on the table for my kid? How am I going to pay for childcare? Because I'm an essential worker. And you think that people are worried about the national debt and the deficit. No. You see, the only time they care about the debt is when it comes to helping normal people. But not when it comes to helping Wall Street. That's the only reason they jumped in and said, got it. Let's give them stimulus checks. Oh, by the way, let's means test it. Thank you, Nancy Pelosi. Thank you. Oh, stock market's doing good? Stimulus checks. Can you believe these people? What? Stimulus checks. Can you believe it? We're all rich and shit. Like, we don't need them. They refuse to help us. 1/3 of the freaking American people can't pay the rent. There's no mortgage or credit card debt or student loan debt or rent or any moratorium. And all they care about is giving billionaires $637 billion more in their pockets. They walk away scotch-free. They don't have to worry about paying their rent. All they got to worry about is, where am I going to invest this money? Meanwhile, you got millions and millions of Americans out of healthcare and out of a job, and they can't pay their rent, and no more stimulus checks are coming, even though Trump wants to do it because it would help his reelection. And his dumbass advisors are going, oh, it'll hurt your reelection. You know, I know it has your name on the check. I know people are going to know that you gave it to them or think it, but it'll hurt your reelection, you dumbasses. I don't even know if they know better. Part of me says, oh, yeah, no, they absolutely know better. But Jesus Christ, come on. Now, look, I'm not a fan of Trump. I hate Trump to the max. I think he's a dumbass. I think he's the worst president in U.S. history. But come on. Let the guy give us another stimulus check. Come on, please. And Mitch McConnell and all these other senators. Here's the problem. All they care about is giving the rich the money and then fucking us over. They're fucking us over. We're being fucked over. There's no nicer way to put it. There's no nicer way to put it. They're fucking us over because all they want to do is please the rich. Democrats and Republicans alike. And so all the progressives, Pramila Jayapal, who fucked us over with Joe Biden's plan for healthcare, because she didn't even bring Medicare for all to the table, and she was the co-chair of his healthcare plan in the task force. The healthcare task force, the progressive, didn't even bring up Medicare for all. But anyway, AOC, Jayapal, Presley, Ilhan Omar, Ayanna Presley, Ilhan Omar, Bernie. Where are you guys? Why'd you vote for that bailout bill? Where's the national rent moratorium? Why aren't more of you fighting? And do the corporate Democrats get your heads out your asses and start helping us for once? That's why you lose elections. That's why. And if you think that the American people, Republicans and Democrats in Washington, aren't going to remember that you screwed us over and left us to die, you better get your asses up, and Republicans, pull yourselves up by your bootstraps. Because guess what? We're going to remember. And when those who are voting go to the ballot box, they're going to think who was actually there for them. And I guarantee you, we need to get all these dumbasses out of office. Because 1/3 of the American people can't pay their rent. Why didn't you give a $2,000 a month stimulus check? Why didn't you nationalize all wages and pay 75 to 80% of wages and tell companies you cannot fire these people? Why not? But you know what? This is how it is. This is how it is. Wow. A bunch of Americans out of a job, out of healthcare, out of money, can't contribute to the local economy, which would do better if these dumbasses did their goddamn jobs.